Welcome back. You're watching World Insight on CCTV News. It's fair to say that we are now in a fully digital age with faster internet accessible to more people around the world. Life has become much more dependent on digital networks. For the media, that shift has revolutionized the industry. Print media and television have struggled to keep their footing as digital media platforms have increased their market share. Earlier, I sat down with Charlie Rose, a renowned American television talk show host and journalist, who shared his views on the future of journalism. Before we go to the interview, let's take a look at this.
Just a few decades ago, we absorbed almost all of our information from printed media, including newspapers, magazines, and books. But technology has reshaped reality. Now, a world of information is at our fingertips on the internet. In many ways, that change has made our lives easier. But for traditional media, it's been a difficult transition. In March, UK newspaper The Independent closed its print operations and went digital only. In 2013, Amazon head Jeff Bezos bought US newspaper The Washington Post, which is now increasingly investing in new media tools that promote video and digital storytelling. Audience totals for TV shows have also slipped as more people, especially younger viewers, turn to online sources. Amidst these major shifts, traditional media has been forced to adapt in order to survive.
Take Diplo for an example. Diplo is a very, very famous electronic dance musician. He was not known to me, but a very young and smart member of my staff said we should have him on. I had him on. We got a great response. Okay. He then invited me to go to Cuba with him. So 2 weekends ago, I was in Cuba with Diplo, a musician who I didn't even know, other than 6 weeks ago, and he had 400,000 people in Cuba for a Diplo concert.
Isn't that amazing?
So that shows you that if you have young people, they'll give you a great access to a range of people you might not have known. I mean, and I find though that they're as interested in what's happening. They're interested in politics, they're interested in international affairs, they're interested in culture. It depends on how you present it, your authenticity, your enthusiasm, how much you care about the content you present.
Did you fall in love with his music eventually?
I liked it a lot because it has a certain movement to it, and I liked it a lot. I also am very much friends of people like Wynton Marsalis, the great jazz artist, and a whole range of people. Ed Sheeran, another young musician, came to my show.
Do you think, though, it is kind of outdated that we have these kinds of exclusive interview program format for today's younger generation?
Well, I think the younger generation has a different, they grew up with different kinds of media, so their expectations are different. But at the same time, I find that young people are as interested in appearing on my program, and they know their audience. I mean, Diplo, or Ed Sheeran, or Leonardo DiCaprio, who's an actor. All of them want to reach a young audience, but they all come to my program and want to do, a long-form interview.
What's going to happen to journalism, Charlie? Shed some light for us, because I'm sure you witness even more some of your best friends leaving the trade.
I do see that, and I worry about that because they're skilled people, and they have all the tools and the experience of journalism. On the other hand, I see people who are understanding. Jeff Bezos has bought the Washington Post. He has made the Washington Post a better paper. He's made it a global paper, and he's trying to convert it into a digital world.
But what about the balance between these two? You see so many more talents leaving the trade, while there are not many Jeff Bezos that are now supporting. Yes, exactly. It's supporting the traditional media.
Some of them being hired by Bloomberg too.
Yes, true.
It's clearly Bloomberg has been hiring more journalists around the world than anybody that I know. Yeah. There may be others, but I'm not aware of anyone who's been hiring more. The interesting thing is that clearly we have to come to grips with the digital revolution, and it is changing journalism.
Does it make us more clear-minded? From a journalistic perspective.
What it does from a journalistic perspective, it is that it doesn't change the work dynamic. A great journalist has to be able to write well, has to be able to analyze well, has to be able to create sentences and analysis that makes a difference. That is still a primary requirement. We now have more tools to do that, and we have more ways to distribute the analysis, the interviews, what you are doing. I mean, you're seen around the world because of CCTV.
But less opportunity to have this paramount power to challenge a specific issue. For example, the Watergate issue in your politics and history. But now it's very hard to find one or two media organizations, or even a number of them, strong enough to be able to push this agenda, not worry about the financial problems and challenges on issues like this.
All of them are facing that problem, including the New York Times.
Yes, indeed.
And including the Washington Post. That's why the Washington Post was sold to Jeff Bezos, because of the financial dilemma it faced. Clearly, especially for newspapers. And that demands that they be more creative as they try, and as they look to the future, and try to figure out, as they sometimes have said, how do you convert digital dimes into analog dollars?
Journalism is being regarded as respectful because of editorial independence, because of the division between marketing and editorial decisions. So
I can only
what
speak
would
from
all
my,
of, yes,
I can only speak from my experience.
yes, but so what would all of this mean?
No one has ever tried to interfere with my editorial independence. No one. No publisher, no owner, no one. And I suspect that's true for most of my colleagues.
Do you have times that you have to overcome your professional fatigue to get you once again interested in what you are doing continuously?
No. First of all, I'm unique in the sense that I have 3 or 4 great jobs at 60 Minutes, at CBS This Morning, at Charlie Rose, at CBS. I do another occasion. I'm doing a thing now for CBS Sunday Morning.
Amazing.
So I have access to a number of programs, and several of them, 2 of them are daily programs. 60 Minutes is a weekly program, which I do occasionally. But I find that I'm maybe working harder than I ever have, having more fun than I ever have, and because of the fact that I can come to China and spend 3 days here and learn as much as I can and have as much access as I have, not to the top leadership, but my access to President Obama is limited as well. But to talk to people like you and like people who shape public opinion in China, and to talk to business people, civil servants, is a remarkable thing to do, and that makes my job as exciting as it's ever been, and we can distribute it immediately. And as you know, because of the technology, it's smaller, it's faster, it's better.
Looking into the future, what do you make of the role of media? Once again, people have been talking about media traditionally as the so-called the fourth power of the country. There are different beliefs.
And
but what's
media's
in the
changed.
future?
How many people do you know that spend a lot of time tweeting? I don't know how much you do it
Enormous
here.
amount of time.
I mean, I have people that are on a set with me, as guests, and they're half of the time, whenever there's a break, they're on their smartphone, either tweeting or looking at their email or looking at their tweets. I mean, clearly that's become a fact of our life. I don't do that as much as some of my colleagues do, because for me, the fundamentals are still the same. And I think for most of us, it is preparation, listening, reaching out and making sure that you're exposed to as many ideas as you possibly can, meeting as many interesting people as you can, and also being able to cover a wide spectrum of material, from culture to science to technology. I mean, I was just talking to the CEO of IBM because I'm doing a program for 60 Minutes about artificial intelligence. On the other hand, tomorrow I'll be talking about American politics here in China. When I get back, we'll be talking about sports, culture.
Splendid,
movies.
Isn't it?
Get up every morning.
Yes.
How lucky am I? And you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it's a global audience too.
It is.
I have a global audience. You have a global audience. That's what makes it exciting, because when I come to Beijing, there are people who come up to me and talk about programs that they have seen that I've done. They may have seen them traveling, or they may have seen them here, but it is a connection on a global scope.
As the old saying goes, all press is good press. Whether negative or positive, media coverage grows a person's fame and importance. That can be particularly true in politics. U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump is a perfect example. The Republican frontrunner has dominated the media since he entered the presidential race, netting far more coverage than his rivals. He has determined the focus of the national debates and has arguably redefined the parameters of acceptable discourse.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion, yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
Even U.S. President Barack Obama faulted the media for contributing to Trump's rise. Trump has also exhibited a brilliant grasp of social media, and particularly Twitter, where he commands over 7 million followers.
I'm sure in your daily conversation do a lot with the primaries and the campaigns. What do you make of the Donald Trump phenomenon?
It's real. He may very well and is likely to get the Republican nomination. At this point, Secretary Clinton is likely to get the Democratic nomination, and she is, in today's polling, ahead of him by most polls by maybe 10%. But all that could change. Donald Trump has surprised everyone. No one would have believed that he would be where he is today. I mean, he's an outsider. He has no political experience. Right. But he thought seriously about this. And we don't really know where his convictions are. We know the positions he's taken, and those positions have appealed to a certain segment of the Republican Party.
Did you interview Donald Trump after he started the campaign?
I did. Yes.
What is the takeaway from the interview you had?
Well, the takeaway is that he thought about this carefully. He knew the audience that he was going for. His initial speech was about immigration. He's talked, obviously, as you know, about politics and economics. He's driven by media. He knows media. He follows media. You know, he tweets all the time. He's a guy that understands media. He understands the idea from his television program of how to speak through media. That has enabled him to get a lot of free airtime, and also to do it and not have to raise a lot of money, which he has some, in order to do what we call paid media.
Right. But there has been concerns whether the U.S. presidential campaign, especially primary time these days, it's all about showtime and nothing about the policy time.
There has not been. There have been in these debates, you know, some serious consideration of issues, I think.
But that, of course, all overshadowed by the rhetoric coming from
and by Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been the story of American politics in 2016. I mean, Hillary Clinton has done, is likely to win the Democratic nomination, but no one that I know would have predicted that Senator Sanders would do as well as he has done. And he has raised a ton of money. And he can go as long as he wants to go, even though she's piling up the delegates.
What does it mean for the U.S. politics eventually? And what does it mean for the capability of governing of the man or woman who's likely to be sitting in the White House? Well,
I mean, these are some of the questions that the people in the Republican Party are asking right now, because, you know, there's an effort by the Republican establishment to stop Donald Trump. It's unlikely to happen, and perhaps if they had started earlier, it might have had a better chance of success. And what it means for the Republican Party is that many of those people worry what it means for the party first, if in fact Trump is the nominee.
But some suggest it has been a continuing story of what the Republican Party did it themselves because of
Indeed, they do. And there is, in terms of gridlock in Washington, and the Republicans controlling now the Senate and the House, but having controlled the House, and John Boehner, when he was a House Speaker, and the conflicts he had with President Obama, led to a kind of gridlock in Washington. And a lot of people in the Republican Party, and certainly in the right of the Republican Party, Tea Party people and others, have been so turned off by politics, Republican and Democrat, that Donald Trump comes along as an outsider, and he has some appeal to that element, and he gained traction with them early, talking about immigration, talking about keeping Muslims out temporarily.
Is this a dangerous trend, from your perspective?
Yes, it is. I mean, the idea of some of the, I mean, I think America is a country that has benefited from immigration tremendously. I think not only in terms of the Southern Hemisphere, Latinos, but also from around the world.